What's up, guys? This is Jayden McNeill from Australia, the current Square One World Champion, and you're listening to the CornerCutter podcast.
Hey, welcome to the CornerCutter podcast. Podcasting since 2014, I'm your host Josh, and this is the most consistent cubing podcast dedicated to entertain and educate you with in-depth conversations with cubers from all across the sport. My website is thecornercutterpodcast.com, and thank you so much for downloading this podcast and choosing to listen to it today. I really appreciate you listening. This week we have an exciting interview with Jayden McNeill, who is the current world champion in Square One, and he holds many of the OCRs as well. Besides discussing his world record fail, we discuss his cubing coaching or cubing analysis work, as well as Nats 2018, being good at many events versus being good at one, and his opinions on being color neutral. So definitely listen through to the whole thing. I know you will learn a lot of great information. If you have any feedback on today's episode, any comments on anything he said, or questions that you want me to ask him next time, then please email in feedback at thecornercutterpodcast.com. Again, feedback at thecornercutterpodcast.com, and I would love to hear from you. So now let's jump into my conversation with Jayden. Okay, now I'm talking with the Square One World Champion, Jayden McNeill. Welcome to the CornerCutter podcast.
Thank you, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, no problem. It's great that you're coming on. I'm excited to talk with you. Now, what's up in Australia right now? How is the weather? That's what I want to know, because it's a little confusing for us up here in the north, having summer in December.
Right. Yeah, weather here has been okay the last couple of days. I've actually had to kind of stay inside for the most part because, funnily enough, yesterday I was just walking around my house and I smashed my toe into a metal box. So I've torn some tendons in my toe. I have since been just staying inside and just like leaving it in a splint. So That's kind of my feet career in the back burner for a little bit, which is very unfortunate. I've been very emotional over that. But other than that, I mean, Australia seems to be doing fine. We haven't had any like rain or anything. It's just getting a little bit closer to the summer in December, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm. So what temperature is it right now?
I want to say like around 20 Celsius, which means absolutely nothing to Americans. So take that for what you will.
I'm gonna have to. Yeah, I can't do the quick calculation in my head. So why don't you tell us something interesting about yourself that most people wouldn't know?
Something most people wouldn't know. Well, I mean, it's hard to say like how much my audience really knows about me or cubers in general. People might not know that I also have like an interest in music, like playing guitar and to a lesser extent drums. Although I haven't had as much time to do that over the past few years. People who like follow me on Instagram might know that, but I think that's probably like the most interesting thing about me that people might not know, that I do play a bit of music.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I've done some guitar in the past. I'm working on piano this year, though.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, piano's dope.
So it was the final round and your second solve of the West Coast Cubing Tour in California. This was the Cupertino event. What happened in that solve?
Gee, I don't remember if it was the second or third solve. I'm guessing that's the one where I dropped the cube and still got a sub 5 somehow.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
So, can you walk us through the solve? What exactly happened? How was your inspection?
Okay, so I'll talk about like everything like happened throughout the solve and I guess maybe a bit of like mindset stuff after. Mm-hmm. So during inspection, like obviously I noticed it was like an easy X cross. And for those who haven't seen the reconstruction, I think it was like a sub 30 HTM solution. It was like, it would have been like a decent FMC for me if I got it in FMC, basically, which is just kind of stupid. But anyway, so easy X cross. There was a free pair after, an easy pair after that, and then another free pair to finish. So like very easy F12, all things considered. And then I had a 8-move OLL into PLL skip, and it was all going great. And then I AUF'd the wrong way, went to stop the timer, and then I realized, oh wait, no, I need to do a U2 now because I messed up. And then in that like little, I guess, moment between like putting the cube down, realizing I have to pick it up and do a move, like it just kind of, I mean, no pun intended, got away from me. And yeah, so I quickly saved it. Like I did considering like how far I had dropped the cube, I think I did a pretty good job saving it. Like the way I did the R2, if you watch the video, it was actually pretty risky. I could have very easily +2 the way I did it. So like, even though like I obviously like blew world record, I'm not really that mad about the solve. Like it's still a sub 5, which is basically like the only goal I really had for 3x3 single long term. And I mean, like a sub 5 is a good solve for me. Like I can't be that mad about it per se, but definitely at the time it was pretty annoying. The main reason it was annoying for me at the time is because like I was in the middle of a cubing tour, so I couldn't like actually just like, I guess, let it sink in and like actually process what happened. Like I had to still be on the tour, still be like relatively, I guess, on social media, although like I forced myself to get off that. And I think like that was probably the most stressful part for me. Like I still had to like go to a bunch of competitions and still like have my A game more or less, because like I'm not the kind of person who's just gonna quit, although like every fiber of my being wanted to like not quit per se, but like just like take some time off and just like get my head straight, which I couldn't really do. But that's more or less like what happened like before the solve and like where I was at after the solve. But like even at the time I wasn't really that salty because again, you know, sub 5, can't be that mad about it. And even now, like when I think back about it, like obviously like it still stings, I could have gotten world record, but you know, when I think about like how much, like how different would my life actually be if I got the world record, in my opinion, like not very different. I may have gotten like a bit more famous, a bit more money, and that's really like the only difference there would have been. And I've still had a decent cubing career up until now, so like I'm really not that mad about it.
Oh, good. I'm really happy to hear that you took it that way. Because, I mean, have you calculated, like, what the actual time would have been if you had done the U2 and stopped the timer normally?
Well, I haven't done the math myself. I mean, obviously, like, I don't really watch the video that much or even try to think about it, because, like, although I'm not mad about it, like, thinking about it, like, obviously doesn't help. Based on, like, all the frame data and just, like, stuff people know about stack mats that, you know, people have done, like, even with like a slow AUF or like just picking it up and doing the U2 without dropping it, it like almost definitely would have been sub world record no matter what. Maybe not necessarily sub 4 if I did like U prime U2 as the AUF with like the minor drop, but like pretty much guaranteed should have been sub world record. Maybe worst case scenario like a 4.3 or a 4.4 with like a bad AUF. So like most likely world record, but like we can't say for certain. If I didn't mess up the AOF, like I did the U instead of the U prime, like 100% world record. Like no questions asked. And like 100% sub 4, sorry.
Okay. Yeah. What was, to you, what was the feedback like that you got online or at the competition?
Well, I mean, it's obviously a lot different in person than it is like online. I would say online it was a lot worse because like in person, like people are generally a bit more like empathetic and, you know, willing to, you know, not give me a hard time per se. People are not like in person, like we're really chill about it. And like, they're actually, you know, telling me like how mature I was being, like, you know, they would have expected like most people to like throw the table and just like have a complete meltdown. So like hearing that was actually really nice. Like, cause I've been trying to get a bit more mature over the last few years, you know, no longer being a teenager and all that. So that's always nice to hear. Online, it was a bit of a mixed bag because there were people that were like, oh my God, rip, you know, all that kind of stuff. The hashtag Jay is my real world record, whatever. Like, and then there were also people just like making annoying memes or like tagging me and stuff like I just don't want to see. But yeah, seeing that stuff online, like, you know, like it wasn't like tearing me apart inside, but like, it was just like, man, I just don't want to see this. So like, I just had to block people. And like to anyone out there, like, there's no shame in blocking people. Like, if you just don't want to see their crap, even if it's just like people who like you know, just post like annoying memes and stuff. Like, even if it's not like offensive to you, like if you just don't want to see that stuff, like there's no shame in blocking people. The thing I kind of realized is that not blocking people doesn't really make you like above it all, in the sense that like you're willing to kind of, you know, hear everyone's opinions. You know, you don't censor anyone. Like, in my opinion, if you block people just because you don't want to see crap, that's just like vetting your newsfeed and like setting boundaries and just being willing to, you know, say like, no, I don't want to engage in this kind of crap. So to anyone out there who like thinks that not blocking people somehow makes them like better or cooler, like you're just wrong. Like, it's just, yeah, that's not a thing. There's no shame in setting boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Last question on the world record fail topic. I don't want to stay on this too long. Do you think you actually got more publicity from it than if you would have gotten the real world record?
No. Like, that's probably not like a great answer. I'll try and like flesh it out more, but like a world record, especially if it was sub 4, like the first sub 4, like without a doubt would have gotten me more publicity. It probably would have gotten me better publicity as well, in the sense that, you know, like instead of, you know, witnessing a fail, we're witnessing, you know, a reasonably big success. But I mean, I don't cube for publicity to begin with. I don't do it for fame. I'm not trying to like get a like. Well, I mean, I would like a job within speed cubing, but I wouldn't want to like do speed cubing itself for money. Like, I think being a competitor, like up to a certain point, it's just like too stressful. So I wouldn't really want to do that as like a career, even if like. And this is obviously like thinking very long term, because like we're not there yet. Like, only like I could probably count the number of cubers who can cube for money just like going to competitions on one hand. Like, it's that few people at the moment.
Yeah.
But like without a doubt, it would have given me more publicity. It's just like there's just no question about it.
Especially with a sub 4 for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Can you tell us about your analysis work that you're offering to people? I know you don't want to call it coaching. That's what you mentioned in your last video. Just could you explain how you came up with the idea and the services you are offering?
Okay, so the thing with the analysis work, I don't mind it being called coaching. It's just I try like out analysis is like the more correct term, because the way the process works, for those who don't know, like the last few months, basically for 50 USD, you can send me an average of 5 video for most events, including like scrambles, you know, a reasonable angle with reasonable lighting. And then like usually like my return time is about a day to 2 days, and I'll send you back like a bunch of notes, just like very nitpicky stuff, like reconstructing the solves if possible and just pointing out like little things I noticed that could be improved. And then at the bottom of that, I'll tie it all together to what I've been calling an improvement plan, which is basically like 3 things to work on and outlining what you should actually do to work on them, and also outlining why doing these things will make your solves faster. So that's more or less where I'm at with the like analysis coaching work. I was doing it before US Nationals with actual coaching, so I would have people like come on Skype and we would like talk about like any issues that I were having with like practice or like maybe even mentality. And we'd also even like walk through solves together. So like one little coaching thing I would do with people is I would just like get a random scramble. The guy would tell me what he would see, and I'd say like what I see, and then kind of like do a like walk through solve together kind of thing. And that's usually, and I found that really helpful for a lot of people with learning like new information, because I could actually flesh out how certain cases and tricks work and their like situational use. I had to stop doing that for a few reasons. The first one was time zone differences just made it really, really annoying, even when I like didn't have that much going on. Now I have a job, so it's like even more just out the window. Like I just can't really do the whole coaching thing. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with the like coaching analysis work, although more so analysis work now. As for like where I got the idea, I basically just kind of saw like a gap in I guess like things that are possible within cubing, because like I have another interest personally, which is like lifting or bodybuilding, basically just going to the gym. And there's like having like a personal trainer is like a very typical thing, and there's like a lot of money in that, but like that just didn't really exist in cubing, even though like I knew like how useful I could be, or like how useful the concept itself would be with a good coach. So that's more or less where I got the idea, and I'm just kind of seeing where it goes at the moment.
Yeah, great. Now, are you currently doing this for only 3x3? Are you planning on branching out to other events that you are super good in?
So I try to only do events that I'm like pretty good at. Like there are events I'm okay at, like say, I don't know, like Megaminx I'm okay at, Pyraminx I'm okay at, but up to a certain point, like I can't really like reach as many people as I can with like 3x3, where like it's just like the better I am at the event, like the more people I can really reach. Like with something like Megaminx, like I only average like mid 50 seconds, and like the world's fastest people are down getting like mid 30s. So I have like very limited knowledge on how to get to even like a intermediate level, in my opinion, because I like, not to be like too elitist or anything, but I consider like mid 30s for Mega like world class, and like mid 50s is like kind of mediocre, and then in between, like I just don't really know like what it takes. But I do like a variety of events. I've actually helped I recently helped Daniel Karnock with 3x3 and Square One, and he just recently got the NAR Square One average at 8.11, and he's also been getting a lot more sub 8 averages in comp. If you just look at his official results, I believe he's gotten pure sub 8 averages across 3 rounds at 2 comps now, whereas before it was like if he got sub 8 like once a comp, that would be good for him.
That's okay. That's interesting. See how your coaching is paying off.
Yeah, no, it's working really well. One interesting thing I've noticed about the coaching I do is I'm actually appealing a lot more to like people who are already like relatively established, as opposed to like people who are a bit like slower, or I guess like more up and comer. So that's just kind of like an interesting tidbit. Like another person I've worked with is actually Kevin Hayes for a 3x3 stage on big cubes, which has been a very like interesting challenge, because I can't actually give like normal 3x3 advice, because not everything that'll make you faster at 3x3 will work on like 3x3 stage at big cubes. Like a big one I usually teach people is to inspect better, but I couldn't really do that with Kevin, because that, like, again, it just doesn't help with big cubes. So that's been like another interesting challenge, but it's all really good. And another nice thing about the coaching is sometimes I'll actually learn stuff from watching other people's solves, or like trying to help other people. And I've definitely had like a few moments where I've learned something that I didn't know. So it's kind of a win-win in a lot of ways.
Any other interesting things that happen during these coaching things, or like you making them or anything?
So within like the coaching itself, I think I've gotten pretty good at like the, I guess, routine of, you know, receiving the solves, doing my analysis work, and then getting back to them with actual feedback and a plan to improve. The thing I'm kind of working on at the moment is like how to like promote the business more, because like I do get people contacting me like semi-regularly, but it definitely did slow down after a certain point. So I'm trying to think more in terms of like advertising at the moment. That's kind of why I've been releasing some more impromptu, like, I guess for lack of a better term, like rambling videos. I just did one the other day on why I think Yao is better than Yao 5 for big cubes. Not really bringing Redux into the discussion, but in terms of the Yao methods, why Yao is better than Yao 5. And then I also did one recently on Look Ahead, because I just think basically every video that exists on Look Ahead at the moment is crap. Like, they just don't get it. So I've been doing like ramble videos like that as a way to kind of showcase like what kind of insight I can really bring to the table as like one means of advertising. And I've got another one planned that I've already mentioned, which is like doing actual analysis of Max Park solves and showing everyone how I would make Max Park faster at 3x3, which I think would be a really interesting video. I won't have time to do it until like probably next week, but that's still like definitely coming. So that's kind of where I'm at with the coaching. I'm thinking more of like an advertising perspective at the moment, because I think the actual analysis work, like I've kind of got that all down, at least for the events I'm very familiar with.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I like how you're building this side gig. Do you see any, like, what do you see for the next few months or the next year or so in your goals for this business? Or do you think it could be a little bigger side gig than normal?
I could definitely see it becoming a main source of income, although that's like a very long shot and that requires a few things. Firstly, I would have to up the price, unfortunately. And it's already like, I don't think it's that high because $50, like a lot of 3x3s cost $50, and a lot of people buy new cubes because they think it'll make them faster. And the thing is, like, my service is the same price, but if you put in the work, like, it actually makes you faster. So I don't think the price is unfair, but even if I started getting a lot more business, say, like, I don't know, like 10 people getting to me a month, that's still only like $500 a month, which, I mean, it's okay, but like I couldn't like go out and live out on my own with that. So I'd have to up the price, unfortunately. A few other directions I could see it going in. I could see potentially being picked up by a team. So like, I don't know, for example, like Gann, Yushin, Cubicle, whatever, where I like actually coach like through their team, or maybe like coach and analyze like actual team members, like members of Team Cubicle who go to competitions, for example, or members of Team Gann. I could see myself potentially being picked up by a team if someone thinks I'm, you know, that useful. Although I think for that to happen, I would have to like more demonstrate my ability to like teach mentality things. So like things that, you know, help you get into a good mindset and prevent nerves like at large competitions. Whereas right now I've mostly been demonstrating my ability to like, you know, just through like pure analysis, like get people better at the solving aspect itself. But competing at big competitions isn't just about that. You've got to have your head straight. The other direction I could see this maybe going in, and this is probably the biggest long shot, but I think something people don't really know. Over in China, there are actually like cubing schools. Like there are like schools and classes where like parents will pay for their kids to go and learn how to solve a Rubik's Cube. And I don't just mean like layer by layer, like they'll learn CFOP, and yeah, it's just like a very interesting cultural thing to have going on over there. Like a lot of people don't know about it. I found out about this when I did a TV show in China late last year for I can't remember what it was called. Impossible Challenge. I got to meet Ying Hao Wang, who's a Chinese speed cuber. He's had 2x2 ASRs, reasonably good all-rounder, and he's actually a teacher for cubing, and he makes like a living off it, like a good living.
Wow.
So that's like the other thing I could see potentially happening. Like I could maybe become like some sort of like grandmaster Chinese Rubik's Cube teacher and just go live in China and like make good money. But again, like that's like a very long shot because I don't have that many connections in China, and I also don't speak the language, so that would obviously cause problems. But like there's definitely like that cultural thing happening over there, and if that was happening in like an English speaking country, like I would just be on it 100%.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's cool. You can go ahead.
What's that? I was just gonna say, like, yeah, like a lot of people like didn't know like about schools in China for cubing being a thing, but especially like over the next 5 years, it'll be really interesting to see like how the like spread of like the top talent changes. Like we already have like Zibo Shu, who's like an 11-year-old Chinese kid. He has a 4.7 or a 4.6 single, and he's like very clearly capable of sub 7, and like could very well be like someone who overtakes Shang Hook Nam in the Asian scene. And he's one of the kids who's come out of one of these schools, as far as I know.
Wow. Yeah, that's some behind-the-scenes information. That's cool. So, switching topics to U.S. Nationals 2018, how was your overall experience there?
Overall, it was a lot of fun. I had a pretty good time. Maybe not as great as like Worlds in previous years, but all things considered, it was pretty good. We'll talk about like why it maybe wasn't as good later with like the all-rounder stuff, because I do actually have some interesting stuff to say there. But basically, like competing in a lot of events can be a bit annoying. I'm not doing as many events as I was before, obviously, but that's probably the one thing that's like really annoying about like the really big competitions. But other than that, like the social aspect is amazing. And I just had a lot of fun competing and hanging out with everyone. Although results-wise, not great. The reason I say that is because I only got one PB across the 3 or 4 days, whatever it was. But I did make the 3x3 final, which was more or less my only goal. So I was really happy with that. And again, like regardless of results, like I had fun. Got to meet a bunch of people, had a great time. And yeah, big comps are always fun for that reason. Like no matter what happens.
What was your favorite part other than actual competing? Like any cool people you met or that kind of thing?
I had a lot of fun hanging out with like people I normally hang out with, so you know, like Felix, Kevin, like that. But also hanging out with the Weyer twins a bit more was really fun. We spent a few days after the competition, like, just exploring Utah. That was, like, without a doubt one of my favorite parts of the competition. Like, the competition itself was, like, fun, don't get me wrong, but, like, the whole competing and, you know, not performing as well, like, it doesn't really help the experience, unfortunately. But getting to, like, just do your own thing and hang out with awesome people was definitely, like, the best part. Like, the days before leading up to Nationals and the days after hanging out with people were, like, without a doubt, like, the most fun I had.
Okay. What I remember watching live I can't remember which day or which round, but it looked like one time you were sitting down or something and you accidentally banged your hand hard on one of the tables.
Yeah.
Did you actually hurt your hand, or was it just painful for a minute?
Okay, so I'll break down what happened. Yeah, this was something that was clipped on the Mental Block stream over at Twitch. Go check them out. Yeah, so the way the chairs work is they like fold up and down on the seat, and there's like a little metal lining thing at the bottom. I basically like crushed one of my fingertips as I sat down, and it ended up being fine. Like nothing like broke or anything, but oh my god, it hurt. But yeah, like no real damage, and it made for a funny clip. So
Yeah,
pretty happy with all things considered.
Yeah, it was like, uh-oh, did he just hurt his hand bad, or is not going to affect him at all? So,
yeah, no, it wasn't quite that bad.
Mm-hmm.
Not as bad as my toe the other day, at least.
Do you want to move on to your other comments about Nationals?
I mean, I don't really know what else I have to say. You know, I've like gone into like the fun I had. Results, there's really nothing to talk about other than, I don't know, just making 3x3 finals. That was fun. Actually, the reason that was like a big goal for me, I guess I should mention, is in 2016, I also attended US Nationals. And in the semifinal, I got 17th. So I was the fastest person who didn't make the final.
Oh, uh-huh. Okay.
So that's why I was like especially glad to make it in 2018.
Mm-hmm. So it shows you're actually improving, even though, I mean, I guess you're improving more than everybody else, possibly.
Yeah, that's actually something people don't really think about. Like, you can improve, but also still kind of like be in the same spot relative to everyone else. Like, it's very easy like to say like someone's washed up because they're not getting the same results they used to. But the thing is, they could still be improving. It's just they may not be improving as fast as like the pack, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it is cool to see that I am like actually kind of getting closer and closer to the top people, while also, you know, improving, which is like very hard to do. Like after a certain point, like getting sub 7 global for me is going to be like a really, really big challenge.
Now, do you still get nervous doing solves in just a regular competition, not Australian Nationals, not US Nationals, just at a normal competition? Do you get nervous before each, let's say, 3x3 solve?
Not like before every solve. I definitely do get nervous if I'm like doing particularly well or if I'm doing like really badly in like an important round. So like if I'm doing really well, let's say, for example, Australian Nationals, like obviously like you mentioned like normal comps. To me, Australian Nationals is more or less a normal comp. That's just kind of the way I treat it, at least. In the second round, I started with 2 sub 7 solves, which I mean is good. But then after that, like I started to get a little bit more nervous and couldn't close out the average I wanted. I think it was like 7.16 in the end, which I mean it's not bad, but obviously I want sub 7, and when you start with 2 sub 7s, you're kind of thinking, you know, ooh, maybe this is it. And then like on the flip side, there was the final round where I choked really bad. I started with accounting 9 after 2 solves. So I knew if I wanted to podium, like I needed three like half decent solves. And the first 2 were like, okay, like low 8s. But then I got another 10, and that was just like kind of me getting in my own head. So I'm definitely a lot better with nerves. And I would say for like people out there being affected by nerves, like there are things you can do, ways you can practice, like the whole Max Park competition simulation thing. Meditative breathing helped a lot for me. But the biggest thing that'll help you is experience. Just like go to as many competitions as possible, get as much experience as you can. Nothing's going to like be able to beat that. Like experience is king when it comes to getting better with nerves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like on a scale of 1 to 10, what are your nerves at a normal competition? And then what is it at US Nationals? Or was it at US Nationals?
So like a normal competition, I don't know, like assuming like everything's relatively neutral, I would say like a 3 or a 4. It's very hard to like put a number on it because my nerves like really depend on a lot of external factors. Like if I'm getting like a very mediocre average, like let's say I get an average where I get like 4 7s. Like I know it's going to be a half decent average that I'm happy with, but I also know there's like 0 chance of PB. So when things like that happen, like I'll actually get less nervous for the last solve because I know it basically doesn't matter in the scope of things.
Okay.
So it's a very hard thing to quantify. They definitely can get worse at bigger competitions, but at the same time there can also be factors at smaller competitions that make matters worse than you would get at a big competition. So for example, at bigger competitions, generally there are bigger stages and there's a lot more like white noise within the crowd that you can't really discern. And like the spectators are generally a lot further away than the competitors' area. Where at local competitions, that's not always the case. Sometimes you'll have people breaking the 1.5 meter rule. That's pretty common in Australia. And like, because there's not as much white noise, you can actually pick out things people are saying in the crowd, like, go Jayden, crap like that. I appreciate the support, but it's not helping. Sorry, kid.
Yeah. And then, of course, the conversation someone's having at the next station right next to you.
Yeah, or like a little kid judge who's like playing with the cube. Like those sorts of things like just won't really happen at big competitions. So it's definitely a bit of a catch-22. Like sometimes I can legitimately be like less nervous in like a big final at a big competition than I would be at like round 2 of a local, just because of things like that. Although it's hard to say if I'd call it nerves or just like distraction, but both are definitely like a damper on your mentality. Like any mental resources not being used to like focus on competing are mental resources that are, kind of being wasted and taken away from that.
Mm-hmm. What have been one of your biggest distractions? Maybe doing a big cube solve. Like what has a judge done or something like that?
I actually have a really funny story for this one. I don't know if this is like the worst distraction I've got, but it's definitely like a very notable one. This was back in like 2014 or 2015. We were doing 6x6 final. I believe Felix got world record or something, typical Felix. Mm-hmm. My judge, while I'm in the middle of my official solve, runs over, lets me like finish my solve without him looking, and comes back. He writes down the time, and then, we both sign it. And just as I'm leaving, like just after I sign it, I tell him, I could have stopped the timer earlier and solved the cube, and you would never know. And then I just walked off.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I just thought that was like a really funny one. This was like years ago, so this was back when I was like a little bit less mature. But at the same time, the less mature part of me just finds that really funny. Like, I'm guessing the kid was just like, "Oh crap! Wow, I really messed up."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a pretty funny one for me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really find it. Well, actually, I should say it was a bit distracting because, like, obviously Felix got world record, and I was like, "Yeah, people making noise," and then my judge just leaves. I'm just like, "What?" Like, should I just call him to come back? Like,
yeah. Isn't like people calling world record down in Australia? Yeah. Like, no, aren't you immune to that?
No, not really. Because the thing is, like, although we do have like a pretty stable community, like there are a lot of kids that will, leave cubing, and then other kids that'll get into it. Like pretty much every competition that has Felix, there will be a lot of like new competitors.
Mm.
And I think that does also happen just from people wanting to meet Felix. So yeah, there's always going to be like a surplus of kids, screaming world record and fanboying over Felix, and to a lesser extent myself.
Mm-hmm. What has been one of your favorite competitions in your 6 years of going to them?
Ooh, one of my favorite competitions. I had a lot of fun at London Open, which was the one that was the week before Worlds 2017. That was definitely like up there in terms of my favorite competitions. If I had to pick like an actual favorite, I would say Worlds 2013. I think that was my favorite because, firstly, like there was a whole like Cubics Friends online community that I was like kind of a part of, and I got to meet a lot of people through that at that competition, like hundreds more than I would have met at like any Australian competition at the time. So it was really fun for that reason. It was also my first time overseas, so I got to, finally experience culture shock and just see new things, basically. And the competition itself was really fun because, I was pretty early in my competing, so I wasn't really feeling the pressure, as it were, as a top cuber. So I got to just really enjoy things, and I did pretty well across all my events. And yeah, I just had a really great time. I think Worlds 2013 is still my favorite competition to date.
Okay, cool. What is it like having Felix in Australia? Are you tired of being second?
So this is an interesting one because pretty much my whole cubing career, I do think about it from time to time, but I'm never like salty about it. It's just kind of a funny aspect of like my being in the cubing community. Like I remember my first few competitions, like I was like not necessarily a fanboy, but I was definitely like nervous around Felix and like, oh my god, it's Felix. Oh my god. Oh my god. But and then I just grew out of that quickly and also just got pretty fast quickly. But I don't know, I mean, obviously, like, Felix overshadows me in the same way that he overshadows, like, everyone that isn't, like, Max Park and maybe Kevin Hayes. So, all things considered, like, I love cubing to the point where, like, things like that don't really affect me. And then the other thing is, like, being able to, like, grow up and, like, be a part of a community with someone as good as Felix around all the time. I think that made for, like, really good personal motivation for me to, really try and get as good as I could get. So if I didn't have Felix around, I could have easily seen myself losing motivation in the sense of like, I'm just beating all these kids, like why should I try? Yeah. So that never really happened to me because Felix was always there to, push me a bit. And I think I also pushed him as well, like especially in like 2013 onwards for a couple of years, I was beating him a lot in 2x2. And then around 2015, I actually beat him in 3x3 in a final, which I'd also come close to before. So yeah, and then like other events, like side events that we're both like kind of into, like square one, like I've passed him at that. Although Felix doesn't really care about all the side events, but he'll definitely practice them from time to time, and like I can hold my own there. Mm-hmm. So it's not like he beats me at like literally every event. It's really just like the end by ends that he has a pretty good stronghold over. But all things considered, like having him overshadow me, I'll take that considering like just how awesome of a dude he is, and like yeah, I like having him as a friend and just having him around to be, good cubing motivation.
Yeah, that's really good. What's your opinion on being like good at everything, like being like, I guess lower world class, like kind of sub world class, being like world or like the best in one event?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I did mention this a little bit earlier in the US national stuff. But I mean, for one thing, like being an all-rounder is cool. Like it was really fun, like topping some of ranks for as long as I did. I had a lot of fun with that. And it is like, in a way, it is kind of cool being able to like be somewhat of the jack of all trades. That's fun until you go to big competitions and realize competing in every event for 3 days is just really, really obnoxious and annoying. The worst one for me was Euro 2016, where I literally did all 18 events. There was a main venue and a side venue that's like a 5-minute walk away, so I was always constantly walking between stressful big blind and multi, then coming back and doing some side event without warm-up, and then another event without warm-up, and just being an all-rounder, like, it's overrated. And the other thing is, I think being an event specialist is just... I mean, not only is it easier, I think it's just a better way to... Like, not that people should cube in order to, like, seek fame, but in terms of, like, establishing yourself, you don't really need to be an all-rounder. If you can just get really good at one event, like, people will know who you are. And the thing is, like, most people, like, it's just not really... I don't think it's natural or normal to, like, really enjoy that many events, like, all 18. These days, I pretty much only enjoy, like, the end-by-ends, and, like, especially, like, 3x3 and one-hander, like, those are by far, like, my favorite events. So... It's, yeah, I definitely enjoy not being an all-rounder as much as I used to. But, that could change. I don't think it will, but I think at the moment, not being an all-rounder is what I enjoy more and how I enjoy cubing the most at the moment.
I want to get into, like, cubing hardware in a minute, but first, you said 3x3 is your actual favorite event?
Yeah, easily.
And then what are your 2 least favorite events?
All right, Pyraminx is definitely like my least favorite. I just don't know how to turn the thing. Tips are just like a dumb concept. They don't move. They're not like, tips take about as much like puzzle solving knowledge as magic, probably less than magic. Like it's just that dumb. Yet it's such like an important part of the solve. Like if you get 4 tips on a scramble, like you basically guaranteed have to add a second to your time, which matters a lot for Pyraminx. Maybe not like a second. I'm probably exaggerating because of my bad turning, but you get the effect. Like it adds up, and for a 2 second sub 2 second event, like it's just dumb. So Pyraminx is easily my least favorite event.
Okay, yeah, let's keep moving. Let's move on to the other. Don't put down my main event too much.
Oh, is your main event Pyraminx?
Yeah.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I'm taking back nothing I said.
Oh no.
By the way. But, yeah, no, it's like the actual tetrahedron solving thing. Like it's not. I mean, it's a bit. I don't know. I guess like boring for me being into like 3x3 FMC stuff like that. But like at least it's a puzzle, and at least it's like kind of fun. But I don't know. I don't like turning it. Like it just feels weird in my hands.
Mm-hmm.
But my other least favorite event. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe like 5 blind or something, or like 7x7. I don't really think about it that much. I definitely know what my least favorite is, but there's like I'd say there's like a category or like a tier list, like 5 blind, 7x7. Yeah, they're probably those 2 events are like in the same tier for me. 7x7 is just like obsolete or not obsolete, but like redundant in the sense that like it has all the pieces that you can find on a 6x6 or a 5x5, and it just poses like a no new challenge really. 5 blind, I guess it does pose like a bit of a new challenge, but at the same time, like I don't know, man. I don't want to sit there like use all that much mental energy and just like DNF a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's a cool event to see, and like I like having it as an official event, but like as far as personal enjoyment goes, like oh god, I would just quit so quickly. 7x7, I find that more enjoyable, but like I don't really think it should be an event.
What's one event that you would add? Well, wait, before you answer that, one thing, like, you're actually decent at Pyraminx. So, what you said is a lot better than hearing someone say they practiced until they're sub 15 and they say they hate Pyraminx. So, you've actually practiced the event and know it well, so your opinion is a lot more, I'm not sure the right word, but...
Well, I mean, like, I know what it takes to be a world-class Pyraminx solver, like, or maybe not, like, world-class. I was never really world-class. I think I peaked at, like, top 15 in the world or something. But in any case, like, I know, like, more or less what it takes to be good at Pyraminx, and I just don't think it's as interesting as something like 3x3 or... actually, Square One's kind of dumb as well, honestly. But, yeah, it's, like... Let's say FMC. Like, being good at FMC, like, I think is just a lot more interesting. But it also depends on the kind of cube you are. You know, maybe you like things that are a bit more repetitive and quick and a bit more streamlined, where you don't have to focus so much on like the thinking side of things and more of like the actual physical aspect of it. But like I'm definitely more of a like thinker in terms of I guess cubing, an intellectual as it were. don't intellectual, please. What was the question again? An event I would add.
Yeah, what event would you add to the WCA?
I don't think this decision should be up to me, because this is entirely just based on things that I find enjoyable. I would add 3x3x5. I just think 3x3x5 is dope. I enjoy solving it. I think having better hardware for it would make it like even more dope. But I still wouldn't necessarily want to see it in the WCA. I don't know. If it was in the WCA, I'd definitely practice it, but I don't think we need new events at the moment. I think we're kind of at a turning point where we need to realistically start thinking about actually removing more events, and not just to replace them with different events, but just to have less than 18 events.
Mm-hmm.
But I would definitely add 3x3x5. It's sick. Great puzzle.
Okay, now let's move on to what is your main and more cubing hardware stuff. So, 3x3 main?
So at the moment, I was switching between a GTS2M and the Valk Power. I'm more so leaning towards the Valk Power because the GTS2 is, I find that the way it like, so there's like break-in and then there's like beyond break-in where it's just kind of like wearing out. When the GTS 2 wears out, I find it gets way too fast, and then when the Valk wears out, it gets like a little bit slower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I find that just more reliable for me. So I'm leaning more towards the Valk Power M, but I'm not like that happy with it. I'm definitely am looking to switch. I've been trying to get my hands on a Gann 356X, but I don't think Gann is actually letting anyone other than the Gann website sell them. So my sponsor speedcube.com unfortunately can't really do much about that. I don't know if the Cubicle...
Yeah, they have it on pre-order right now.
Yeah. So I am, like, for 303, I am currently using a Valve Power M, but, like, it's got, like, an asterisk next to it. Like, it's my main, but, like, it probably won't be for much longer.
Okay. What do you think about Gann's puzzles getting so expensive? The X is retailing at 62. So, I mean, compared to, like, the GTS 3M or Bulk Power, it's, like, almost double.
Yeah, it is definitely a bit maybe not concerning. I have like a weird perspective because ever since like really like 2015 or so, like I haven't had to buy as many puzzles, and ever since like 2016 I've basically just gotten everything for free. So I don't really have that like consumer mindset anymore. Like even nowadays where I have like less sponsorship than I did in the past, I still just don't find myself needing to buy cubes. I don't know. Like people are going to price things however they want. Like you just kind of have to accept it. I think after a certain point, like, yeah, maybe it is annoying, but at the same time, like, what's stopping you from like going to a competition, trying out the cube that someone else has bought, and then deciding based off that whether or not you want to buy it? I don't think that's a bad thing to do at all. I just think a lot of kids like they're like, ooh, it's the new thing. I want the new thing, and it's. I don't know, like, I can't really get into that mindset anymore, but I'm probably just old, so... I guess bottom line, I just think the price is fine. You've just got to understand this is how business works. This is, the real world.
Okay. Have you tried the Gann prototype Megaminx that Felix has?
Yeah, I did a few turns on it. It definitely impressed me. I couldn't really, like, turn that great on it because I'm very used to ridges, but... Other than that, like, it very clearly had, like, the best tolerance to, like, corner cutting, reverse cutting, and just lock up resistance from anything I've tried. Maybe not like worlds better than, like, the Chi Galaxy, or X-Men Galaxy, rather, but, like, better enough that I could see at least a number of people switching. I think with that cube, or with that puzzle, rather, Megaminx will start to get to the point where, like, hardware is pretty much at the point where a lot of things are personal preference. Like 3x3 is definitely there. Like we have like 4 companies people decide between. There's like other events, like there's still like typically like 1 company that's on top, maybe 2. But Megaminx is starting to get to that turning point where he doesn't have the stranglehold.
Okay, I have a few more quick questions, but then we're going to wrap it up. I definitely want to get you back on sometime because I got only like 2/3 down my list, and I think we could have a lot more interesting conversation. So one of the questions was, you have the OCR4 clock. What exact clock are you using?
I'm very curious where this question came from. I haven't posted a video about clock in like, I don't know if I have posted a video about clock. I think the only video I've posted about clock was like my Lingau clock review, where I was basically listening to just like Sonic the Hedgehog music and playing with one of the pins that came loose. Okay, so my main is a magnetic, I believe it's a Rubik's. I actually got it from Josh Farron. Shouts out to Josh Farron. Check out his channel, something, I don't know. I don't know how to spell it. Just look up Josh Farron. Anyways, he gave me a clock at US Nationals. He's a dope dude, and it's magnetic. I don't know if it's Rubik's or not, but it turns really well. So that's my main at the moment. That being said, I did get the OCRs on a Lingau. Actually, I got it on the Lingau. I made a quote-unquote review on that you can also find on my channel. I ended up being able to fix the loose pin or wheel or whatever it was. And it actually turns really well. If it had magnets in it, it would probably be about as good as the clock I got from Josh.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to get you on again just final question. What's something you've changed your mind about recently?
All right, I actually have a good answer for this one. Something I've changed my mind about. I've changed my mind about switching to CN being difficult. And the reason I say that, this is not for every event. This is more 3x3 specific. Other events, your mileage may vary. But for 3x3, I now know that one, Patrick Ponce, he went from dual color neutrality to full color neutrality after a week of practice. Granted, he was doing like 1,000 solves a day, but if you just grind it out, you can go from dual to CN. Going from single color to CN, according to Patrick, was more difficult, so I haven't been able to comment on that until I recently found out that Philip Wire has switched from white only to color neutral. And he grinded that out after about a month, because in Patrick's opinion, going from single color to color neutral is significantly harder than dual cross to color neutral. But clearly both were able to do it in like a non-obnoxious amount of time. And like 1 month, like you may think that's a long time, but at the same time, when you're thinking in terms of like competing at majors over the next few years, like that's definitely like a worthwhile investment when you think about how important inspection is. Mm-hmm. So I used to be of the belief that if you're at a certain speed and you're not color neutral, don't worry about it. Now I've changed my mind about that. If you're not color neutral, regardless of your speed, fix it. It'll make you faster. It shouldn't take you more than a month, maybe 2 months tops if you're like somehow like ridiculously less gifted than Philip Weyer, which I mean, no offense to Phil, I just don't think it should take you that much longer. So yeah, I've changed my mind. If you're not color neutral, switch.
Awesome.
Or you don't care.
That's one of the best answers I've had. Thanks, Jayden, for taking the time to come on the podcast. So happily we were able to work this out.
My pleasure, Josh. Thank you for having me after I missed our first call by me oversleeping and then just forgetting like a bad person.
And then we kind of evened that out, though, because I lost internet on the second time. So
yeah, thanks to our Josh's IP provider for making me feel less bad.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, dude. All good.
I had a really fun time talking with Jayden. This has been one of my favorite episodes so far, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Again, if you have any feedback, please email me, feedback@thecornercutterpodcast.com, and you can find show notes to this episode with links to everything we mentioned on my website, thecornercutterpodcast.com. Also, if you think I'm doing a good job with the show and you want to support me when you order cubes, you can go to thecornercutterpodcast.com/support to find all the ways you can support the show by using my affiliate links and discount codes. I would appreciate any support. And then I would appreciate it if you could leave me a review in Apple Podcasts. I recently saw that I just got another review, and I will read it next week. And the easiest way to access Apple Podcasts is go to thecornercutterpodcast.com/subscribe. Coming up next week, we are going to have another YouTuber show. The last one happened on episode 27, and this kind of show, I bring on two YouTubers. We discuss making videos, the equipment you need, and how to make good quality videos and get subscribers. So kind of like a YouTubers roundtable. And that will be a fun and interesting show. So make sure you come back for that. Well, now it's time to take this episode back to the scrambling table, and I'll talk to you guys again next week in episode 57 of the CornerCutter Podcast. Second longest episode ever. Woo!